Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a podcast where a group of friends share music with each other, taking turns, one album at a time. It's like a book club for music. Real fun stuff. I'm Peter Rave, your man with no plan. Here with me is my team, my squad, my crew. We've got Brett.
Hey. I was unaware that we were going to be making animal noises at the beginning of the show, but it definitely worked.
Yes. We've got Drew.
I was going to make a quack joke as we were getting into this, just for the callback to the pre-show, and then
Waterfowl
I got outdid.
of Ohio. Yeah. I was going to talk about waterfowl of Ohio, but I was not expecting onomatopoeias up in here.
Yes. And we've got Patrick.
Hello. How do I follow that up?
I don't know. I don't understand me either. We're here to talk about music, gathered together to talk about an album we've just shared. The person who is sharing the album is Drew. Drew, it's your turn. What do you got for us this week?
Well, I was tasked to bring some ska music, so I decided to bring a little bit of ska. A band that formed in 1991 and were on the very famous Hellcat Records at the time that this album came out. They're pretty roots when it comes to a lot of it, and I like them quite a bit when I'm chilling out. It's a band called The Slackers and their album Redlight.
It is definitely some roots as ska. But yeah, let's talk about some expectations. Brett, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Of the ska or ska adjacent music that I've listened to in my life, this is not the kind that I ever really went into. So I had first off, I didn't have any idea how ska this was going to be. And I definitely didn't what my expectations of what Drew sits around in his straight edge lifestyle listening to. This isn't probably on the up there. I mean, this is definitely different than what I thought.
Yeah. Patrick, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Coming in blind, I knew it was ska, but I may have heard a Slackers song before, but I didn't know it was a Slackers song, so I'm coming in here with open ears, not knowing what I'm getting into.
Would there also be Full Hearts Can't Lose?
Yes. Speaking of waterbirds, fittingly enough, of the waterbirds of Ohio, there is the trumpeter's goose, the trumpeter swan.
The back channel is silly. They have the waterbirds of Ohio, the division of wildlife guidebook.
Almost at this point, I have to make a second up. No, at this point, I have to make a second. This is gonna make me make a second episode of pre-show the show.
God damn it!
Where we just cut out a section of the show and tack it on, where we talk about the American black duck and maybe the mallard or the blue winged
more of a
teal.
wood duck kind of man.
Yeah. But yeah, that aside, we'll leave that to its own thing. Drew. What? How would you describe this album? I was almost going to say, what were your expectations? How would you describe this album musically? What would be the themes elements coming into this album?
Well, the weird thing about this album that kind of is a weird highlight is, one, it was on Hellcat Records, which, if you're not familiar with Hellcat Records, like, if bands like Leftover Crack and Rancid usually find their way to Hellcat Records, it's not usually the place where you find this. This is very much, like I said, something that takes a lot from the roots of ska, very old school sort of bits than their third wave ska revival counterparts at the time. You had very jazzy horn bits at times. There were songs that got into a very late 70s, early 80s, like two-tony feel. You had songs that took very much like from like old school rock and roll. You had this organ that had that dance hall feel to it. But it was all in this very old school ska, reggae, dub feel to it. And that comes over not only, I think, in the composition work of it, right? It was not only like a more mid-tempo ska record. It wasn't your ska punk that was coming out in 97, but it was also the tone of it. There was something about the entire production of this record that the tone quality of it to me even sounded like it was of that era, like it was out of time in a way, and not like they were like overusing it or like it was a heavy hand to make it sound old, but just that was the aesthetic they were going for. And I think that's kind of cool. You put this up against like I said, like the Rancids or Real Big Fishes of the day, and it is jarring to a point, but it makes sense and it works as a ska record. I mean, fuck, Toots is on a track, for Christ's sakes. It's a record that has. There's always in my opinion, sort of stereotype of, oh, you got to pay attention to your roots, and like you always have that rude boy that's always like talking about it, and that the Slackers are sort of the band for that guy. I guess is the best way to put it.
That guy. Brett, how would you
Not that
describe
I have
this
a
on
problem
music?
with that guy. Let me point out.
That guy, he needs less up being picked.
Yes. Yeah, Brett, how would you describe this?
Hey guys, this album has a whole bunch of hand percussion, like a whole lot. Like there are castanets that show up in this album. It's very odd. This is very much not the pace or I come from the school where ska is this cartoon of itself, and takes it. Well, mainly it's the Aquabats to me, and then some other stuff that I lived during the late '90s, so of course I know the stuff that this came out alongside of, and this is way more than just your regular ass ska. Like there's some ridiculous fat jazz box tone going on, that's more than noteworthy. The horns are like used in ways that you don't normally hear them in the more like radio friendly stuff, where like the horns were on the upbeat, like the guitar doesn't even like the guitar does things that like you're not getting the upstroke Fender single coil on the like every single song. You're getting like some complex stuff. The horns in every song have plenty of time to do what they want to do. And they have a place where they start and they got a place where they end up, and they do all sorts of stuff in between. But it's not like musical gymnastics. Like it's very tight, and it's very, very. It's not so in your face. Like it's sort of a chill album, which is kind of fucked up because, like, for somebody who doesn't do drugs, Drew bringing this album that is probably been enjoyed by many people who, are into the roots variety of of the genre. This album almost had a smell to it.
Yeah.
Patchouli.
It's an album that I imagine plenty of people have listened to on weed.
On weed. Yes.
Look, ska bands may like a little bit of the ganj. It's okay.
I believe it's almost like it's a genre that was born from Jamaica or something.
Yeah.
Weird.
Buddha funk.
Yeah, predates reggae and all that. Patrick, how would you describe this album musically?
So, if you're someone who is familiar with second wave ska, like the Specials and stuff, but you wish it was recorded a lot better, here you go. Here's a band called the Slackers that, while real we're big fishing and no we're still kind of doubting and all of the the whole like, third wave was going on and stuff. You had this band basically doing old school 70s second wave two-tone ska. And it's fun for that. There's organ on this record, and as we have long established, organ is a painfully underutilized instrument, and it's utilized well here. So I'm down with the organ on this one. And most of the vocals are really nice. Guy's got like a really like talk singy voice, but in like the right kind of talk singy. It's what I would call melodic talk singing. As the non-expert on talk singing, but he doesn't have an especially musical voice, but he knows where he's going with it. It's nice. So yeah, it's very out of it. The year it came out, and if you just say this is a ska record from 1997, you're going to be very surprised if you know what else that would have meant, because this is not a ska record from 1997.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a throwback even from its predecessors. That's for sure, and not just to ska, but to other really good sounds. And kind of like 50s rock, a little bit like some other stuff mixed in as well, and like reggae and dub, and like they say on the Wikipedia, reggae and dub a little bit there, here and there, and it's just a feel good record. This is like that band that would be playing at that Jamaican club while people are hanging around having drinks, just chilling. They're just up there on stage playing. And it's all the better for it, I think. But yeah, Drew, let's talk about some of the key tracks as we break it down on a song level. What would be some of the key tracks for you?
To me, the three I wanted to pick out were pretty obvious. I almost thought about picking out Redlight just because like the title track and all that, like I usually harp on, but Redlight's a great track. But like, watch this. It feels like a special. Like, watch this feels like a straight up special song. Like it just does. Like the tone of it, the horn work, the piano work. There's a simple brilliance to all of it that just works, and I really, really respect it. We talk about like the 50s rock and roll sort of like sounding thing to it. And that I think is exemplified really in Married Girl. It's a ska record and you have this 50s sounding rock and roll song about like getting a girl to cheat and smoking pot, and like it just shoved into a ska record, and I'm sort of okay with it, which I understand me being like, hey, the cheating and the murder and the marijuana is one of my favorite Slacker songs. Might be weird. You know what? My favorite songs from Real Big Fish and Mustard Plug are beer and drinking, and like, yeah, it doesn't make sense, but look, it's where I'm at with ska. And Tintin Dio. There's something about a dark, moody ska song that I just love every single time. Because, like, just that idea of, like, look, it's like when I hear that type of song, I get this image in my head of, like, just like a rude boy in, like, some dapper ass clothes and a pork pie hat, just trying to like get into some dirt or find some pot or like do something, just like out on the streets at night, like, and that I'm kind of okay with that, like Rascal King idea. Like, I enjoy it. It's something that like I will, if you were a ska band and you do like a dark, moody, rude boy song, like I'm okay with that. You got a thumb up in my book.
Yeah. Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, my less elegant three, as I review them, Cooking for Tommy is a pretty cool opening track. It's pretty much just a horn jam with like some really fun jazzy licks thrown in there. It's definitely got a fatter sound than what you normally get with, an offset guitar going on the upstroke. Married Girl, the rotating speaker, the organ, the whole shebang bookmarks the beginning and the end. The hook is really great. There's some murder. It's pretty earwormy. It's something that as I was playing through, it would pique my interest every time. And Soldier, like another groovy tune, the guitar and the organ mixed with like the hand percussion, and like there's this weird parlor piano that's used almost like just every now and then. It's put in there just to sort of fill a frequency, and it's not even like it's way back in the mix. And I was like, it was a unnecessary thing that I enjoyed picking out. But like there are so many songs on this album that are way different than anything I've really sat down and listened to. So my vocabulary for describing a lot of this, other than like, oh hey, they did the thing, and then the horns went horn, horn, horn. But there's a lot of fun to be had on this album.
Pedro, I believe you're muted.
I could not get his mouth.
Sorry. I didn't want the podcast to be all Patrick, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Watch This. Second track on the record. I was like thinking about this like the first time through. I'm like, this is so un-third wave. But again, like I really like his vocals. They're just sort of growly and really simple, and not like super like musical, but like really he has good vocal melody choices. The organ just makes it for me. And again, like this song really does not sound like 1997, but little bits of organ, just nice. Married Girl, really, really good vocals on that. I don't know why I like them so much, but I do. And that song just it's a nice like groove, and it's a really enjoyable song. And then because it's kind of out of place, and I weirdly like it, the last song, Come Back Baby, which is just, an acoustic track at the end of a record, because that's a thing you did in the 90s. But it's just, it had a nice melody, and it was just kind of an enjoyable song and a nice way to close out an album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also want to give a shout. Married Girl is fantastic. Kind of have that 50s sound. And also giving that great like rhyme, the married girl, don't you wanna smoke a little marijuana? It's just like you can't marijuana. You can't like not sing along to that. I like just like it's just like you're just sitting there listening to the song. You just it's hard. It's hard not to sing along to that part of that song. I dug another memorable one. You Must Be Good was memorable in kind of an odd way. It just had a cool like that one. I think in particular just stood out to me and kind of being old school in its sound, in a really really cool way. And we didn't talk about Redlight. I mainly want to talk about the incredible fart trumpet or fart trombone. We're not sure in Redlight that appears somewhere that kind of caught me off guard and was just fun. It was just kind of having in the middle of the song. You just hear this going brr, brr, brr. It's like that was my spring.
Speaks to your aesthetic.
Yeah, that was my spring of this album. Also, it reminds me of the fact that that Skrillex killed for a minute, and on some level, it also kind of made me a little bitter. So it's like a little bittersweet moment for me. But yeah, that aside, let's bring it back around the horn to talk about some conclusive thoughts. Brett, what would be your conclusion on the Slackers?
I mean, if you've not heard this variety of the ska, you probably ought to. This is very inoffensive. At least, well, I mean, unless you're like 8, your mom hears you listen to a song about murdering people. But You know, like it's something that I would have probably never gotten around to listening to if it weren't for this show. And I feel like I am much better for having heard this. Is it something I'm going to go back to? Probably not anytime soon. But I enjoyed my time with it.
Yeah. Patrick, what would be your conclusion on this album?
So I had a thought when I was listening to this about sort of this era, 1997, 1998. There was this, in popular music, there was this swing revival thing happening.
Jump
And
diving
there was-
and wailing.
And there were sort of like, you had, Big Bad Voodoo Daddy, Cherry Poppin' Daddies, but then you had like Brian Setzer Orchestra, who were kind of great because they were just better musicians and kind of like just did that gimmick better. And I feel like this is very much a revival of old music, but I feel like it's more Brian Setzer quality than Cherry Poppin' Daddies quality. Like it's well executed revival. But like and I'm saying that as a compliment. Like it's an odd compliment because I'm a weirdo, but it struck me as like an interesting, like this was I mean technically a revival of a sound, but it did it really well. I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was a surprise. I thought 90s ska, I was going to get a third wave record, and I totally didn't, and that was kind of fun.
Yeah, I think overall this is just a fun record. Different from what you would like the others have said, different from what would expect from the contemporary era of it, and from what just the genre description. It's a nice concerted effort, I guess, to like in that time to be a throwback sound, which is really cool. And I think it works well, and it's just a good, fun listen. Drew, what would be your conclusion on this album?
Like I said, this is one of those bands that like sort of flies under the radar for a lot of folks. They weren't as like big or flashy as some of the other bands that made it out of like the 90s ska revival, your Aquabats and your Real Big Fishes and whatnot. But if they are always in the back pocket of every, like, if you ask any ska band, there's always the one dude that has, no, like, you gotta listen to the Slackers, man. It's that band. It's the band that all the other bands are like, no, dude, like they're amazing. And it's always that back pocket band that band everybody always gets into and always digs, but like nobody ever talks about on the surface. And I think that's sort of criminal because the musicianship is fantastic and the composition is fantastic, and they're just a really fun band.
Drew, I want your response. This album had no songs about cats with multiple heads or magic chickens.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
It is
What
okay.
say you?
I believe so too.
They had a song about cheating wives, murdering pot, though.
That's very un-Aquabanian, but I'll let it pass.
Yeah, this world is a tapestry of different approaches to everything. They can both the Aquabats and this can exist.
And they did
harmony.
at the same time, and that's kind of weird.
Yes. And you know what? You can all be the happier for realizing that. But yeah, those are our thoughts on the Slackers. But we shall not slack off on our duties as haiku reviewers, because we come to our main event of the evening, the moment we've all been waiting for, our haiku reviews. Yeah, we're still doing that bit because it's fun. Yeah, let's get down to it. The haikus. Brett, what is your haiku?
A bit of a shock. An authentic feeling sound. Way more than just ska.
Mm-hmm. Patrick, what is your haiku?
A second wave sound in a different place and time. Excellent organ.
NSFW tag, here we come.
Excellent
Swagger
organ.
talk about his organ.
All right, my haiku. It's that good ska sound with some more cool stuff mixed in. That good fried chicken. Finally, Drew, what is your haiku?
Swagger's not talking about his organ. He's talking about the Slacker's organ.
Hey,
it's a little different.
Subtle difference.
Groovy old school ska from a band that ain't that old. Respecting the roots.
Yes. Slackers. Those are our thoughts on the Slackers. Our complete thoughts now. You can, of course, find this album on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers, The Home Game. This is, in fact, the name of that playlist. Play along at home. Follow along. Keep up with us. You can, of course, not on that same Spotify playlist will be next week's record. Next week's record is going to be provided by a guest. We've got the wonderful, the stupendous, the no longer on Twitter, though he may actually plug his Twitter account on the podcast. It's going to be weird.
Time travel.
Oh, I forgot.
Kind of for the same. Kind of for the same reason.
Yeah.
It's going to be weird, but it'll be happening kind of for the same reason. Swagger will kind of, for one episode, be up back on his old webcam again.
Professionals,
Awkward.
ladies and gentlemen. Professionals.
Hey,
Hey.
the professional thing is banking episodes so that we don't miss our schedules. We are professionals. It just sometimes it kind of causes weird things. Yeah. But that being said, DJ M is going to be here for a really cool album that obviously, just to be honest, we have already recorded. We're going to be talking about a really cool hip hop album, kind of hip hop sound chill album called Miami Garden Club by the artist Kitty. Not that Kitty.
No.
It's with a Y
other
instead
one.
of an IE. This is important.
We're not going to be talking about Brackish.
No.
Y'all remember that
Not
song
this
from high
time.
school? I remember that song.
We're not going to be talking about that Kitty this time. But that's neither here nor there. That's next week, and this is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. Patrick is at The Swagger. Brett is at Hibbity Ribbert, HIBBITYBIBBIRD. Drew is at XJuciferX. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com is the email. Rebelli.net for this and other shows. Rebelli TV on YouTube and other places on Twitch. Not that it matters right now, but I'll figure out what to do on that Twitch channel. Just follow us where you have podcasts. See the show notes on the website. Also, where you on your chosen podcast place, because the show notes will be there. But yeah, do all things. Like, share, subscribe. Until next time, hasta los huevos.